encounter.
Good knowledge, yeah.
It feels very
Hello and welcome to the Unwanted Opinion podcast, the show in which me and my friends give our unwanted opinion on all things film. My name is Lewis and I'm joined as always by my good friend Kyle.
Hello.
Hey Kyle, it's just us today, so how are you doing?
It is. I'm good, thank you. I'm good. Goodfellow is currently moved countries and he's starting a new degree, so he's taking some time to settle in and get Wi-Fi, which is why he can't join us today. But no, I'm good.
He ran out of data, the silly bastard.
And yeah, and you know what? I think if he was here, he would just be yelling. Lots of yelling, maybe quite aggressive. To be honest, I would imagine.
He has left me a little message that I'm sure I will say in the end.
Oh, has he? Has he left you a wee
It's
message?
in reference to a certain show. But yes, on today's episode we are talking about maybe the most divided franchise on planet Earth, and that is Star Wars.
I say it probably now is.
It probably is.
I would definitely say it's now the most divided franchise.
Yeah, I mean, with the Andor show coming out this week, there's no better time to bring up the Star Wars franchise against my best wishes, as much as I.
It's so funny
putting this
that
off as much as possible, but yeah.
You were the one, Lewis, who was like, I'm not going to be here for this episode. This is when I'm going to take a wee week off, and now you have to be, or it'd be me ranting to the audience.
Yes. Well, the main issue, I guess we'll just jump right in about Star. Actually, hold on. Forgot to tell everyone. Of course, we'll have a little bit of news and a review for See How They Run in this episode as well. God, all over the place already.
Well, I mean, I want to bring up something for you.
Yes.
This is. I'm going to put you in the hot seat.
In the spot. Okay.
Yeah, I know it's turning around. Do you think overall, the Star Wars movies are good?
Right.
If we're looking at the franchise, and I'm just saying the movies here. The movies can also include the spin-offs, right? I'm not just talking about the Skywalker saga.
Okay.
I'm going to include Rogue One and Solo: A Star Wars Journey, the origin of Luke Skywalker's sidekick.
Yeah.
What do you think about the films overall? What would you describe it? What would you give me like a one-word description?
Look, Star Wars for me, I guess it's different for every child out there, I guess. But Star Wars kind of means a lot to different people. It depends when you watched it and how involved it was in your childhood. And it's quite interesting because from me, the earliest memory I have it was literally just having the video of Star Wars Episode 1, Phantom Menace. I'm the video and literally just watching the lightsaber scenes. That'd be it. I would literally
the mindless action.
Yeah, mindless action. Obviously the stuff about, I mean, we'll get into all this. The political stuff, the taxation stuff went right over my head when I was like 3 or 4, so I was just there for the flashy swords. So my introduction to it was actually the prequels. Instead of, watching the original trilogy first and then going to the prequels, which I guess, I don't know is that what you did, Kyle? What was your introduction to the franchise?
I honestly couldn't tell you. But my earliest memories are definitely of the prequels.
Right, okay.
Mainly because I went to see Revenge of the Sith for my 8th birthday party, or my 7th, whatever age I was at the time. Because obviously at the time, before Disney's acquisition, especially the prequels, they all came out in the May period. So that's obviously where my birthday is. So I went to see Revenge of the Sith in theaters, and I think that's when I was first introduced. I remember watching Attack of the Clones at my friend's house, and I remember his mum having to read out the opening crawl, and she was just she was honestly as confused as we were. It's probably not as confused as she was reading the Phantom Menace opening crawl. But I would definitely say later on, I think I got more into watching the originals as kind of time went on. Because then I can't remember the first time I watched the originals, but weirdly what gave me a resurgence of the original movies was that first Lego game.
Oh, the Lego games, yeah.
The first Lego Lego game was based off of the prequel trilogy, so the sequel one, and I was like, I mean, I was really young, and I don't know if the originals were as prominent for me, but then that game was I'm gonna play, I want to watch these films again and be so into it.
I mean, I have avoided your question, but I will get back round to it in a minute.
I do, yeah.
So,
See, I
your
knew I was
opening
gonna just
question.
jump in with that.
So, with the prequels was kind of my introduction to it, and I remember before watching the last prequel, that's when I finally got an introduction to the original trilogy. And it's quite weird because see with the prequel films when I was a kid, I know that George Lucas always said they are for kids, but I've never
Yeah.
really bought into that because honestly I had no idea what was going on in those films.
He can't say they're 4 films and then have the whole subplot be about
Yeah,
tax
it's
and
all
trade
about
routes.
tax, and it's also like a weird like allegory for like the George Bush administration. It's really
Yeah,
political stuff. It's something that he says is for kids, but none of it. I don't know. A child could really follow and understand all that stuff. And it was when I finally watched the original trilogy, I was like, well, at least I can understand what's going on when I was like 7 or 8. You know, it's a much simpler story. It's literally just a chosen one story. Luke Skywalker, a little farm boy, gets has some force powers, goes off with an old mentor to go against the galaxy and rebel.
yeah.
Um,
It's kind
it's a
of
much
like
cleaner story and a much
much
simpler
cleaner,
thing to
much
follow.
more simplistic,
Hmm.
actually.
Yeah. But
And
anyway, back to your
yeah,
point.
back
Do
to
I
my
think the
point. Yeah,
franchise as a whole is good? Um, I think there's more bad in it for me than there is good.
we've discussed that. We have discussed
Yes.
this at length,
Uh.
just in our personal time. That I
Mhm.
do now think
Mhm.
there is more bad
Mhm.
than good. But then
Yeah.
there's certain bads
Mhm.
that are also good in
Yes, in
a
a funny way.
non-intentional good way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I really do think the some of the films, especially in the prequels, they
Mhm.
can be unironically
Oh,
hilarious.
absolutely, absolutely. But
You know,
let's begin with the prequels, okay?
oh, with the
Watching,
prequels.
yeah, let's begin with the prequels, right?
Oh, okay, okay,
We'll
okay.
go. I guess. Well, in the narrative chronologically, but not really chronologically. We'll start with the prequels, because this is where my frustration with the franchise begins. There is this common belief, which has happened ever since the end of the Disney films, that for some reason people, obviously because they grew up with the prequels, and
Yeah,
they now have a belief
yeah.
that those films are good.
Are we?
To
Yeah, is
me,
this the resurgence of them being like this is the prequels
this
are
is
actually good?
just right. Just because something is bad doesn't make something good. You know what I mean? Right? Things
Yeah,
can be both bad isolated
we've
by themselves, and I don't understand why just because the Disney trilogy ended on a bad note doesn't all of a sudden retroactively make this trilogy good. Because
I
the
think this is the
prequels are
fans.
bad.
Yeah,
They're
I think
bad
this is the
films.
fans.
Uh huh.
I think this is the fans trying
Mhm.
to, almost like comfort themselves and
Mhm.
being like, oh, these weren't great, but we always had those.
Yeah.
Because for some reason they won't accept the originals just to be the definitive films.
Yes. Yes.
Um, Even though I don't think the originals are perfect, I
Mhm.
think there's some major flaws with
Mhm.
them.
Yeah.
But I don't understand, and there's especially there was an interview with Ewan McGregor when he was doing the press for Obi-Wan Kenobi, the
Yep.
most recent series,
Mhm.
when he was talking to people and he was like, oh yeah, these guys came up to us and we were like, oh yeah, we saw these films as kids and we absolutely loved them.
Mhm.
He was like, oh, that was great because we made the film for the kids. And
Mhm.
I'm like, I saw them when I was a kid. I loved them as a kid.
Yep.
I like one of them now
Yeah.
because it's funny
Yeah. Yeah.
because it feels more like a comedy than anything
Yeah.
else.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't think
Uh
I
huh.
would say they're great these days.
No. I mean, I just think from look, we always go on about film is subjective. There's qualities in different stories and different things, and the way certain films are made. But on a filmmaking perspective, look, the Phantom Menace to this day, from a visual effects point of view, actually holds up pretty well, especially
I
for
mean, is it not got the
1999.
most practical effects out of all of them?
Out of the,
Isn't that?
yeah, out of the prequels, definitely. And I think that's why that one looks the best, I guess, visually, is because there's still sets
Because
and there's
yeah, it
still
was
a
it
good
was
blend.
before the
Uh huh.
big green stroke blue screen
Mhm.
dump
Yeah.
that George Lucas tended to do.
Yes. Yes.
Because obviously he was very fascinated with special effects and graphics,
Oh
right?
yeah,
And
that's what he
if you
cared
haven't
about. That's
seen
what he cared about.
um
Hmm.
is it magic, lighting and magic element.
Yeah, that's the one.
There's a fantastic docuseries on Disney Plus talking about the kind of build up of the company, and I think he was just kind of progressing with the time, almost like, I'm gonna try and compare him to James Cameron, but just not as effective.
That's a good comparison. Yeah.
Where he was wanting to make stuff with this technology and make this world. I just don't feel he executed it as well as James Cameron did with Avatar.
Yeah, because they are both directors who wanted to pioneer visual effects and some filmmaking practices, and they both did achieve that. I mean, I think The Phantom Menace, as flawed as that film is, I think from a visual effects point of view, is still very impressive.
I mean, even the original films, from a visual effect point of view, especially from being in the late 70s, early 80s, they are really nice films.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would really, well, I mean, I can discuss about this. I've always really liked to have seen the de-digitalized versions of those films.
Yeah, I mean, Godfather mentioned that in the last episode, actually, yeah.
Yeah, because I really, obviously preserving the right of a film's creator, sure, but you should be able to see any version, because I kind of like, I would love to watch A New Hope without seeing a really bad CGI creature in the back of it.
Yeah.
And
yeah, absolutely.
But I mean, obviously back to the thing about the prequels. Now, for context, I mean, I don't know how many people know this, but for the original films, George Lucas only actually directed one of them.
Yeah, George Lucas only did A New Hope.
He only did A New Hope.
People always forget that. He didn't direct all three of those films.
You can find interviews from back in the day where Sir Alec Guinness, who obviously plays Ben Kenobi in the original film, and Harrison Ford were talking about the fact that the script was so horrifically bad. Like, they just didn't believe they were saying this stuff on set. And it was like producers and everything who basically saved the movie.
Yeah, the editor as well was heavily involved with like salvaging that picture.
Yeah. So like and then obviously the Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, were directed by separate people, obviously with.
Yes, Irvin Kershner was Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
And I can't actually really remember who did The Last Jedi. Not
The Last Jedi. Return of the Jedi. Yeah. I don't know. I can't remember, but it was like obviously George Lucas was involved heavily in the story, and he was obviously an executive producer and even writing. But then I would say that if you look at that, I think that was the reason the original trilogy was so good.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna keep that idea of three separate directors in your head, okay? Because I want to come back. I'm gonna come back to that. Yeah. But when he then decided to do the prequels, and he was in sole control, doing, because obviously, I mean, huge hype around it.
Yes, absolutely.
There is a fantastic video by Mr. Sunday Movies discussing the marketing of the Phantom Menace. Incredible, just insane background. But he had full control because obviously they were like, this is going to be billions. Probably let's get him in full control. And I think he just kind of lost it and just was kind of like.
I think when that film was in production, when he said he was going to make that, people forgot he hadn't directed a film since A New Hope. Like, he hadn't directed anything. He hadn't done anything. And he was literally just a producer and a writer on those other films. So, not directing for, I think it was about, how many years? 20 years? You hadn't directed
That's a long time.
That's a long time to not be practicing.
Especially, as we were saying, like, technology had progressed. It was progressing for that time.
Yeah.
And I really think that when he came to Phantom Menace, or the original trilogy, especially later on, there was that issue of, shit, this has to tie into A New Hope.
Yes.
Because this comes to the overall idea where I think a lot of the issues with the later Star Wars films is lack of planning.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where you have a rough idea of what's going to happen, but you don't have the definitive timeline of where things take place and where things run into each other.
Yeah, I mean, I think with the prequels, George Lucas was handing in final draft scripts like days before shooting or something, like really not in advance at all. Like, so this idea that he had this all planned out and stuff, which I will always contest with as well, because when we talk about these prequels, it's those first two movies are irrelevant. in a trilogy.
They really are
those first two films are completely irrelevant, and then you get a third film which completely rushes the Anakin Skywalker Turn to the Dark Side arc. Like, it's like you wasted 4 hours of screen time, basically.
It's funny when you talk about that, because obviously in A New Hope, we get the name drop of the Clone Wars. So obviously everybody was very excited to see the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
You got introduced to the beginning of the Clone Wars in one film, and then you saw the end of the Clone Wars in the next film.
Yeah. It's so baffling. It's a baffling decision.
It was quite crazy that happened, and I really feel that weirdly these films, for being in a galaxy, in a vast sprawling galaxy, very close knit in the characters, where you have this random bounty hunter from Empire Strikes Back whose biologically cloned father happened to be the base for every. If you looked at the prequels now, if the prequels came out these days, there would be a lot of shit posting about how they're just trying to force it to be linked to the originals.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, the thing with the prequels, I think the main positives is, okay, yes, I mean, George Lucas is notoriously, if you watch the behind the scenes of the making of The Phantom Menace, which, by the way, is hilarious, because you just see a bunch of producers shitting themselves throughout the production. Like, oh my god, what is this guy doing? Then when they finally screen The Phantom Menace between with George Lucas and the producers, like, they're all just sitting in silence, like, oh my god, what have we just made? And then George Lucas is kind of freaking out. But there's a scene in that where he goes, obviously, he says, oh, it's like poetry, it rhymes. So he's trying to obviously, like, keep it all kind of
the Skywalker saga
poetic,
it's poetry,
have
it rhymes,
kinda, link it up and stuff like that. It's quite funny.
It's it's bizarre, and I really think that the good things from the prequels, I would say, was Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi. I thought he did a really good job. Good. Hayden Christensen, I think, could have done a good job, but I think the issue for him was that he just didn't have the guidance.
Yeah. Like, people will always make fun of the iconic "I don't like sand" line, but I don't. I would find it. What actor would be able to make that line work?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I can understand what the character was trying to say, and the fact that it's linked to their trauma.
Yeah.
Just like we say, like with the original trilogy, the dialogue was just awful.
Yeah. And Hayden Christensen's acting works best when he doesn't have dialogue, and when he just has to use just looks, and it's mainly through his eyes and stuff. He's really good. I mean, there's a fantastic scene which I'll say is one of the best, absolutely hands down, of the entire prequel trilogy, is when it's in episode 3, and it's when obviously he's told Mace Windu that Palpatine is the Emperor and the Sith Lord, and obviously. But also he's at that crossroad, he's at that split moment where he's like, well, he apparently has the ability to make sure, I can cheat death and I won't lose Padme. Yes. But he's also like, the right thing to do would be to take him in. He's an evil guy.
He's a bad man.
Yeah. And it's that bit where there's no dialogue, and it's literally just him in the Jedi Council room, and it's sunset in Coruscant, and he's just looking out
and he's
over
just
the
kind
city,
of contemplating everything,
to where Padme's flat is. And he just is struggling, and the music's fantastic. And I think it's just it's one of the only times where I think that this is a really well directed film. And Hayden Christensen, his expression on his face is so good, and he's so tormented, and he has this tear fall down, and it's so great. And it's because there's no dialogue. There's no dialogue. It just looks great.
I completely agree with you. I don't like the idea of Padme dying of a broken heart. That really feels to me like the issue where we have to get to A New Hope.
Yeah.
I hate that really passionately.
Just to wrap up with again the prequels and move on to the original trilogy. It's the biggest flaw for me, and it's what I don't understand, is that people. I know it's all subjective. We went over this, but they really are badly directed and put together films. Like, the way it's shot, the way the films are paced, the way they just shoot conversations with the dialogue, with the really stilted acting. Like, even Samuel Jackson is boring in these films. I'm like, how do you manage to do that?
How do you get Samuel Jackson boring?
He's such an entertaining actor, and you just make him just sit there and just have a scowl on his face and just kind of says lines really
be grumpy,
monotone like,
you know.
and it just all has no really kinetic energy, and even like some of the action scenes, like Attack of the Clones on an action level is not good. Like the lightsaber, I mean, they're all meant to build these big lightsaber fights at the end of
what
each
was
film.
it? The big kind of arena lightsaber fight
Yeah,
where all the Jedi
and
just get
the
their
fight,
asses handed to them.
yeah, the fight with Count Dooku at the end is just shot in the dark, and it's all kind of, it's all not great. And I think that's the thing. I don't understand how you can just sit and watch them and be like, this is a really fun and engrossing film. It's just so boring to me, and that's the biggest flaw of those
I
films.
think Revenge of the Sith has some redeeming
Yeah,
factors with
that's definitely the most,
its
I don't know,
ending fight.
fun and energetic. Yeah.
I judge the ending fight for being almost too choreographed.
Yes.
Like it
Yeah.
doesn't feel,
It goes
because
a bit too over the top.
a lot of
It
people will
does.
complain about the fighting in the sequels and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't say it's great. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think the fighting is great. But the sequels feel less choreographed.
Mm-hmm.
Like it feels like actual genuine passion fighting.
Yeah.
I really wish there's a kind of middle ground.
Mm.
But anyway, let's move to the originals.
Yes.
So I have I don't say it. I don't know if it's a hot take with the originals.
Oh, here we go. Another one.
But Return of the Jedi just
Yeah.
doesn't slap, man. It really.
It's flawed.
See when I think about it.
Mm-hmm.
If the original trilogy was produced today,
Mm-hmm.
how bad would Return of the Jedi be received?
I mean, even at the time, I think critically it wasn't done well. Obviously, there's we're doing another Death Star as the big threat.
For me, the other Death Star doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't annoy me as such because for me it kind of felt, well, it's almost the first time they did another Death Star, you know.
And we're gonna get it 2 more times.
So it didn't affect me too much. What
Mm-hmm.
kind of affected me, or really bugs me, are those fucking bears.
Yeah. Oh, the Ewoks.
Yeah, because I'm building up for this really brilliant climactic final fight with the rebellion against the Empire on full force, where we have this incredible space battle. By the way, I think the space battle in Return of the Jedi is brilliant. You got the iconic "it's a trap," you know, tensions are high, and then on the ground we have the Empire being basically killed and bullied by these teddy bears.
Yes.
I really just think that it was just one subtle thing they could have done, and I think it would just made it feel
a
lot better.
Look, the original trilogy is obviously, everyone considers it the best trilogy, of course, in Star Wars. It has the best set of films, probably the best, made films. I mean, well, we'll get into that.
I mean, for the time, I would say they probably are.
Very well done. I mean, obviously, Empire Strikes Back is my personal favorite. That's not exactly me making anything a controversial statement.
No, I don't think that is controversial.
Favorites, it literally raises the stakes perfectly from the one before. But the thing is,
new characters.
It's really hard nowadays, obviously, to isolate the original trilogy as it is. And of course, George Lucas it's one of those things where it's like, when filmmakers and stuff go, oh, we always planned to do this amount of films, cough cough, Halloween franchise. We always planned to do this, that, and that. Well, to be fair, George Lucas did always have in mind an idea to do this middle trilogy first, then a prequel trilogy, then a sequel trilogy. Like, he did want that.
Yeah.
And obviously he was quite burnt out after the reception of the prequel trilogy that he ended up selling Star Wars, but regardless. When isolating the original trilogy, though, it's to me, I just like to watch it as just like really fun and a well-made space adventure of the 70s and 80s. Like, that's kind of what, especially A New Hope. If you look at that, I mean, there's only Tatooine, a space station, and then a little base they go to.
Yeah.
And that's the film. Like, it's really feels, although there's a big evil laser that's going to destroy planets, it still kind of has this kind of innocence to it, this sort of like, it has even like a bit of a cheaper looking quality to it, and it just has this, it's very, very 70s adventure film to me, and that's why it's good fun. I like that. It's fun. And it's quite interesting to see how from that, we now have this, with hundreds of hours of content now to watch, expanded from this very fun,
self-contained
kind of
little
space adventure.
story.
And that's kind of how I always like to look at the original trilogies. They are just like they are very simple stories that don't have a bunch of meaty lore about midichlorians or ancient Jedis and stuff like that. I mean, of course they talk about certain things, but it all just feels like a lived-in world. It feels like a thing that's had a lot of history, but also it is simple. It's simple, and I like that.
I mean, that's the best way to look at the original trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
It's simple, it's fun.
Mm-hmm.
You can look at the prequel trilogy. If you enjoy them, well, okay.
Fair enough.
They are aspects to enjoy,
mm-hmm.
but overall, I think it's a bit of a great dip in quality.
Yes.
And then, as you said, George Lucas never made sequel films, and then that was it. That was the last time we saw Star Wars was in 2005.
Yeah. There is that famous quote he did with Entertainment Weekly, or when he said, someone asked him, "Is that the end of Star Wars? Would you let anyone do Star Wars if it wasn't with you?" And he went, "Nah." So
yeah, exactly. So on to the news. But then sadly, we live in the darkest timeline, don't we?
We do.
Where a little mouse came around with a big check.
Yeah.
And as you say, George Lucas was burnt out, and it was sold to Disney.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I can't lie to you, Lewis. When I was, I can't remember what age I was. So what? I would say, was it 2012 the accusation?
Yeah, it's when they bought it. Yeah.
Was they bought it? Yeah, because 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015. Yeah, that makes sense. In 2012, when I got told by my dad, because he literally came up to my room, the desk I'm sitting at, and he was saying, "Oh, yeah, you're not seeing they're making 3 new Star Wars films." Freaked out. I was like, holy shit, let's go. I was like, I was having an absolute moment. I was having the time of my life. And, everything building up to The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
I was loving it. The announcement of J.J. Abrams, because I loved that new Star Trek film that he did at the time.
I know that should have said that in a hot take. I love his Star Trek film, because I know a lot of Trekkies are not into the really sort of high octane action version of it. I do enjoy it.
I love that first Star Trek film, so I was really excited. And the casting, I was like, okay, cool. These are kind of newcomers of Daisy Ridley and John Boyega.
Yep.
I wasn't really familiar with Adam Driver at the time, nor was I actually familiar with Oscar Isaac at the time.
Oh yeah.
A couple of people I knew. I knew Hux from About Time.
Yeah, talked about Donald on the show.
Yeah, I knew him, so I was like really hyped for this. And then that first trailer, I was like insane, fantastic.
That first trailer was a great trailer.
Oh my god, it was a good trailer.
Return of Millennium Falcon, a new fancy looking lightsaber, X-wings. Had fans galore. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the film came out, and now here's my issue with all the Star Wars sequel films, is that if you asked me as soon as I got out the theater to every single one of them, I would have said it's great.
Yeah.
Because I was so caught up.
Yeah, you're caught up in the moment. Absolutely.
In the moment.
Understandable.
Some of them took longer to form an opinion of than others. There's a certain Star Wars film that I came out saying that was great, and then about 2 hours later, I had completely turned my mind on.
Yeah.
And it's not what you guys think, if you're all thinking it's the middle one. But with Force Awakens, I stand by the fact that it is a slightly rebooted repainting of A New Hope.
Yes.
Now,
that's
if you can accept that, you can somewhat enjoy this film. Where it's a fast paced. See what you were saying about how the original films were just like a 70s space adventure.
Yeah, they're fun space adventures. I really like
this feels like a fun 20s 2000s space adventure with a bit more action, a bit higher quality graphics.
Yeah.
Taking away the fact that, like I said, obviously we've got Starkiller Base and the Death Star. But like I said, if you accept of the fact that it is a retelling or rebranching of A New Hope, you can have some sort of enjoyment with it.
Yeah,
and it has a fantastic ending. I really love that ending with Luke as well.
Yeah,
because you're obviously also like, oh, is he going to be in this film or not?
Okay, well, with the Force Awakens for me, look, Those concerns, like you say, you have to accept them because that's what J.J. Abrams does. Like he likes to sort of he doesn't like to break the mold like Rian Johnson does. He's the one he's wanted to kind of just sort of repaint over a new hope, give people that feeling again, and sort of bring us back into this
it
world
works.
with something
You can't
we know.
You can't deny it works.
He's a big he's a big he's a big fan of nostalgia and like retelling stories. That's what he does.
Yeah,
that's his thing. And look, I understand the flaws of Force Awakens, like you said, it is just a New Hope but reskinned. But like we were talking about the pace of the prequels, J.J. Abrams is fantastic at pace and directing action and keeping things exciting. And look, like I'm not the biggest Star Wars nut. Like we've gone over, I'm not a big fan of a bunch of it, but because of that, I always have a lot of fun with Force Awakens. When I rewatch it, I'm like, there is a lot of potential here, especially with John Boyega and Daisy Ridley. Like they're really, and obviously Oscar Isaac. The three new characters they introduced in this are filled with so much energy and charisma and Adam Driver was a really fun, exciting villain. Like the four of them have so much passion and energy in these films that it's like it radiates off the screen, and along with this really fast pace and like really frenetic action, it's like it's such a fun watch. I mean, the only bits I really roll my eyes at is Starkiller Base. I don't understand why they wrote that in.
See, with Starkiller Base, the thing I loved was the holographic comparison.
Yeah.
Like, I always feel like, was that a wee dig at themselves? Like, we were literally doing the Death Star but bigger?
It's like we're going to talk with see how they run later. Just because you reference something, it doesn't excuse you from being lazy. I just don't get why they didn't think, we really shouldn't do another Death Star, guys. Like, make it just a war film, or make it just like...
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll get on to war films in a second when we talk about the spin-offs.
Yeah.
But before we move on to the next film in this trilogy, I want to kind of briefly discuss the background of these films.
Yeah.
Where we were going to get 3 separate directors. Okay? Now, I'm a fan of that idea because I like 3 separate interpretations of 3 separate views. Yep. It was originally J.J. Abrams for Episode 7, Rian Johnson for Episode 8, which both happened, and then Colin Trevorrow for Episode 9, which did not happen. Now, Lewis. But my also issue with having 3 separate directors and not having a finished story arc for this whole thing was because let's start off of J.J. Abrams, okay? He's well known, he's done a huge TED talk about this on the mystery box.
Yeah, the goddamn mystery box thing.
So J.J. Abrams has this mystery box idea. The next director might not.
No.
So how does this work?
If you know that you're like, I'm gonna start this franchise off, this new reboot off. I'm therefore not directing or writing anything going forward. Why would I set myself up and the viewer up for disappointment in that you're going to lay groundwork that may not be picked up on?
Yeah.
Like, unless you had agreed with the executive producers like Kathleen
Exactly,
Kennedy.
that's what I was saying. They should have had some, if they had certain things that they wanted to have this box, it should have been pre-planned stuff.
Yeah.
That was decided on before the shooting of the film. It shouldn't be what J.J. Abrams is, the director, who just goes, well, I'm just doing this one, so I'm going to do as much as I want.
Yeah.
And then when we move on to The Last Jedi, we obviously have Rian Johnson doing his thing.
It's sort of like how Kevin Feige is the big executive producer of all the Marvel films, and he goes, look, this A, B, and C needs to happen in this film. I don't care how you get there. I want you to, use your creative license and do what you can within these borders. But I want these things, these story beats have to happen. Yeah, and I don't understand why that wasn't given by the producers.
It was, I honestly, like I said, Liz, I don't think they had a coherent storyline.
They go ahead to do some Star Wars films, and they just like, get Lawrence Kasdan in, get the old cast in, and just go for it.
We give shit for Marvel right now and their film stuff.
Yeah.
We can't deny that they Kevin Feige goes out on writing retreats.
Yes.
And they'll plan out the next 10 years worth of content because they do have an end goal.
Yeah.
Star Wars, you had plenty of time to do this. You know, it's not like you're starting from scratch. There have been so much legends, what they now call it, but expanded universe at the time, of novels, comics, video games. Any one of those, you could have gone, fuck it, we'll do an adaptation of it.
Taking inspiration from that comic, taking inspiration from that game. Just use what you have.
Yeah. And I think, to be honest, not a hot take. I'm not a huge fan of Kathleen Kennedy with her work on Star Wars, as you may know, Lewis. Yes. I don't know if I've ever been slightly vocal on that. But who I am slightly keen on of his involvement in Star Wars is Jon Favreau.
Jon Favreau with all the TV stuff and things. Yeah.
Dave Filoni.
Yeah.
Those two guys know what Star Wars is, and they have passion. Now, I do suspect they've also been pushed by certain somebody to include things within their TV shows. But I really think they have the eye for what Star Wars should be. They've clearly have got a storyline there that's going to be expanding, not multiple seasons, multiple shows.
Yeah.
To culminate in something. While we have Kathleen Kennedy with Disney just going with it. And as we can tell...
Well, to be fair, that Kathleen Kennedy, if you give credit to those shows, Kathleen Kennedy is in charge of all those shows. She's the one who greenlights them and approves it.
Yeah,
so it's like a double-edged sword.
But you can say, like, she's saying, yeah, go for it. But she's not saying, I'm going to do the story. Like, you know, she could say, like, oh, I approve of any film, but just because she doesn't plan it out and do the story doesn't mean you give her credit for that.
With the TV stuff, I mean, we're obviously going to get back to these movies in a second, but I don't really like the Marvelization of Star Wars, though. Because I already don't like having to watch multiple different things to get one story out of it. Like,
right,
I don't want to have to watch Boba Fett to now watch season 3 of The Mandalorian. I didn't watch Boba Fett, but I know there's stuff in that happens that connects it to series 3. I'm like, why are you doing this to me? I don't want to watch that show.
I think my thing with the Boba Fett is I think they realised that they weren't making a good show and they had to get viewers in, and I think that's why they did that 2-episode mini Mandalorian season within Book of Boba Fett. But I get what you mean, that you don't want to have to. You just want to kind of experience Star Wars with just it being Star Wars.
I kind of wish all the shows were kind of different things, you know.
Well, I get that. I get that. I do, because I think it comes back to my part where I was saying with the idea of having the prequels and the originals connected. The shows make it feel like there isn't a galaxy worth of people. It feels
small, you know.
Well, if you did have 4 or 5 shows that were all their own separate, individual, non-connective story, you know, that could have been really good. You could have had an Ahsoka show about her going out to find Ezra and fight Thrawn. You could have had a Mandalorian show where the Mandalorian has to help Grogu get away from the Empire.
Yeah.
You could have had...
It's funny because Star Wars is both limitless and limited. Like,
yes,
Disney.
That's a very good way of describing Star Wars.
It's obsessed with putting everything within this. How many years is it from the prequels to the end of Force Awakens? What is it? So 50, 60 years?
I would say it's to the end of
from episode 1 to the end of episode 9. How many years is all that?
Oh, I mean, 30. So there's a 30-year time jump between.
Kyle, we just said, wait, look how does the math for us.
20, 30, maybe about 60 years, 70 years.
60, 70 years, but they say there's hundreds and thousands of years of lore with Star Wars and stuff like that, but we're obsessed with putting everything within this one timeline.
Yeah.
You know, constantly filling out the gap between episodes 3 and 4, and now this gap between 6 and 7. It's just like, can we just
They
move
they
on?
do love doing that
Can we
gap.
do other crazy shit with this? But
I
speaking
mean,
of doing crazy shit with this, let's talk about episode 8 in this whole
The
mess
Last
of everything.
Jedi.
Yeah.
So weirdly, I mean, I know we've mentioned it on the podcast before, but me and you both really do quite like
I
The
like
Last
The
Jedi.
Last Jedi, yes.
I think it's the best in the sequel trilogy because I think that it's one, not being afraid to be original.
Yeah.
Okay. It doesn't. It's not. I'm not saying it's flawless because it does have some flaws. I do think they missed an opportunity. Well, no, right. So this is just me having gripes with the Rise of Skywalker. But obviously, Rise of Skywalker. Last Jedi came out in 2017. December 2016 is when we had the announcement that Carrie Fisher has sadly passed away.
Yeah.
Now there was a lot of, theorizing and wondering what was going to happen with the dealing of her passing away, because obviously she plays our Princess Leia.
Yeah.
And they decided to keep her in everything within The Force Awakens. Okay? Now, should they have done that?
I don't know, it's hard. It's a really hard decision what to do with
the issue is,
that.
in The Last Jedi, they have an almost perfect scene that they could have killed her off.
Yeah, I know. But I don't know. I think that would have felt a bit weird if they did it in film. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's sort of
that's
and I
fine.
think
Fine.
there is a really, really great scene between Leia and Luke at the end of the film as well, which that would have taken away from.
Well, I thought you could have just. My idea was, and I don't know how they could have run around, because you always had the thing. Could you not have just made her a Force ghost during that scenario?
I mean, I don't think it has
but
the
then
same.
Obviously,
it doesn't have the same impact.
it doesn't have the same thing, especially since obviously Luke himself is a hologram at that point. Or
I mean, you could have then ended the film on a really sad note by having Princess Leia die as well as Luke at the end of that film. The loss of Luke and with the loss of Han that was so recent, because I think Force Awakens Last Jedi happened in the space of a few days or a week. You could have had that.
I do think it was a few days. Yeah.
You know what? Fuck it. Here's your poetry thing, George Lucas. Oh, there, Padme died of a broken heart, and so does Leia, because her brother and her husband are dead.
That would have been a really interesting thing to do, actually. Yeah. I mean, I don't think anybody would have liked it.
But that would have also given your sort of Empire Strikes Back moment, which they kind of did with this film, is where they end it.
They did, because they ended where the rebellion is on one tiny ship.
Yeah, and then the leader could have died as well. Just a thought.
Overall, there was parts that I really enjoyed with The Force Awakens. I liked. Now, I wasn't particularly happy with the comedic throwing of the lightsaber.
Yeah, look, I don't mind that, because it's just him throwing away the lightsaber. He doesn't want anything to do with it.
Yeah, I feel that just an idea of it being his father's saber and then his saber, that he would have just dropped it.
Yeah.
Like, I think it could have been more dramatic if it was a classic slow-mo drop. And he just walked away.
Slow motion.
with a drone circling around it as well, and Linkin Park playing.
Very good. Fucking hell, I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? I was like, with drones.
It was gonna be, and then you'll see how he walks away. Yeah, that's how I was gonna have it. Imagine if The Last Jedi opened up with a Linkin Park, song. I really enjoyed.
I would have loved it.
I really enjoyed Luke's opinions, because I'm a huge fan, especially in the expanded lore of the Great Jedis.
Yeah.
And when that trailer came out and we were getting some Great Jedi stuff, oh boy, was I hyped.
It also kind of makes me question, right? Because a lot of people, like The Last Jedi, when it came out, I remember coming out of it, and then in the car with you, I just looked on the Rotten Tomatoes score. I want to see what it was at, and it was like quite high critically. And then the audience score was like 49%. I was like, what?
I remember you telling me that.
I was like, what's going on here? I was like,
insane.
what happened? And of course, we'll get through all the greats, but one of the biggest greats is people getting angry at the depiction of Luke. And I'm like, did you not watch the trailers? Because in the trailers, they marketed him pretty much as he is in the film, as someone who's like abandoned the Jedi
I
order.
feel right.
It's like it's time for the Jedi to end. I'm like, how are you surprised at the way he's depicted in this film?
I've got an idea of why I think his portrayal was perfectly fine.
Yeah,
because
I think it's great. I love the way it's depicted.
Well, see, I'm gonna try and give context for people. Where if we look at the prequels, younglings are taken into the Jedi and religion from a very young age. I'm gonna paint the Jedi as a cult. So give me a second. Where
it kind of is.
They're basically brainwashing the young children to believe in this way of life. Okay, they're believing in this way of life. They're believing how this prophecies were told. They're believing everything that they should be doing this right. They should be doing that right. Luke, what becomes a Jedi? 19.
Yeah.
So it's understandable that as he gets older, he realizes from not being as a youngling kind of manipulated or brainwashed into believing everything that he starts to actually go, wait a second.
Yeah.
These aren't right.
Yeah, this isn't right.
And then he starts contemplating, and especially that maybe it's with his experience of leading his own Jedi temple with Ben.
Yeah.
When he starts forcing it on him as a young child, he might have gone, wait a fucking minute.
Yeah.
I was never done this as a child. This seems really bad as enforcing this onto a child. So I don't think that's bad at all. I mean, I think his portrayal was fantastic. I think his sacrifice in the end was incredible.
Yep.
I personally love just the random killing off of Snoke.
Yeah, it's great fun.
They should have just kept it like that, and we just never knew who Snoke was.
Yeah. I mean, a part of me wishes, right, because that's the thing, it's these things that pissed people off, is because you had, things like fans didn't get what they wanted. It's not the typical Star Wars story. It's not the familiar like we got with Force Awakens. And the people obviously said just because you subvert expectations doesn't make it good. And I'm like, yeah, sure. But also, The Last Jedi is a whole it's a strange criticism as well of where you are with franchise entertainment. It's so funny that it is this film that is both can we move Star Wars on, please, from doing the safe shit to then, and also criticizing franchise films as a whole. That's what Rian Johnson's doing. He went into a studio system and just gave them the middle finger in a weird way, which is quite funny to me. And I really wish Rian Johnson directed Force Awakens first. I wish he went first.
Yeah.
Because I think actually it would have been better, because with Force Awakens you have people now getting something that's making them, it's like a warm blanket, you're getting something right? Right? You're getting something comfortable, and you know the story, the X-Wings and the Millennium Falcon, these visuals and this iconography and these characters. But I think if he did his script first and did the first film in this trilogy, I mean, we're already coming off the prequels, which is already quite different to what we had before in terms of the way the world looked and the whole Jedi Order and stuff. And I think people might have actually been more accustomed to that. And if he went first and did something wild and different, I think people would have been more agreeing of it,
I get what you're saying, that, yeah, if we started with going completely against the rebranding of A New Hope, somebody would have gone, oh, Star Wars is going different for a new generation. I like that. But yeah, with the rebranding of New Hope, then going different, people are like, oh no, I was so happy with my comfort film that I'm scared of anything different. And you're totally right with that. And I think that's why it's so divisive, because you have people who, like us, were excited to see a fresh take with unique perspectives and interesting character choices, when you have the other people who were just like, where's my rebranding of Empire Strikes Back, guys?
Yeah, and why isn't Luke exactly the same as he was 30 years ago? As if human beings don't change over time.
You can't say it's not actually a rebranding.
Yeah.
Because you do have the Krayt/Hoth battle.
Yeah, which does
at the end
has obviously a kind of a similar style, and that's actually getting onto style. Last Jedi is hands down the best looking Star Wars film. It looks fantastic.
It really does. Obviously, within the Star Wars logic, people might complain about that hyperspace battering ram.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that was
looked fantastic though.
pretty
It looked cool. I mean, even the quote unquote this film is like the only Star Wars like mainline series to not have a lightsabers. Like lightsabers don't touch each other in this film.
Yeah, that's true.
There's not a traditional duel, but even the throne room scene. And look, I hate this, right? Because obviously, people who hated this film and whatever people who hated this film want to nitpick absolutely every single aspect of it, and so what they did is like slow-mo down that sequence and looked and analysed it. Oh, the stunt people aren't actually connecting here and they're not doing this and that. I'm like,
you could
never tell that if it's in full motion and you're just watching the sequence like a normal person. Because the throne room scene is great. I think it's a great action sequence.
You're like, I actually watch all my films at 0.25 XP.
Yeah, okay, if you watch it frame by frame, sure, but like you're not going to notice it if you're just watching normal speed. Anyway, I'm griping. Look, I think the stuff with Rey, the stuff with Kylo Ren, and stuff with Luke and also in conjunction with the visuals and stuff, is fantastic. I think that's absolutely, and the questions it raises about basically everything you've known about Star Wars, like the Jedi are good, the Sith are evil, and Luke being like,
does the main character have to be linked to anybody? No, they're nobody.
Absolutely not. And we'll get into that in a minute. And people just for some reason wanting this universe to be smaller, whereas Rian Johnson's trying to make it bigger and ask moral questions that maybe Rey doesn't need to be a Jedi to be good and Kylo Ren doesn't need to obey every rule of the Sith in order to be a bad guy. It's so interesting, that stuff.
Do you know what? That was such a good point where we don't actually have a villain and we actually have two grey people.
Yeah.
Almost like the Grey Man by Ryan.
But like to sort of kind of move on to the final in this saga, just kind of round up the way The Last Jedi ends. For some reason, I think a lot of people kind of thought, it doesn't really give you much room to go with for a sequel, but I think it actually does, because Rian Johnson simplified the story down. Like he took Snoke off the table. He
actually brought it back down
to basics,
a New Hope sort of level.
Like he's like, okay, Snoke's gone. There's been serious damage to the Resistance and also the First Order as well. Let's do the time jump and let's see where this takes us. You have your adversary, Kylo Ren, has doubled down in his hatred for Luke and Rey, because obviously Rey is turned against him after he gave him an ultimatum. After he gave her an ultimatum, and obviously now Rey,
Hux as well could have been shown to be some sort of antagonist within the First Order.
Yeah, exactly.
You could have honestly had a First Order civil war.
Yeah, it could have been interesting
between Hux and Kylo.
But let's get
what we got, Lewis.
Let's get to this.
Was the rise of Skywalker. Now,
oh God,
this film we have talked about in great depth on the show, so we probably won't talk about it in great depth again because it drains me.
No, it's hard.
It really drains me. So, back to my earlier point about the directors in the sequel trilogy. J.J. Abrams was brought back to direct this film,
which is like the worst move you could have made for him to come back and have the writer of Batman versus Superman and J.J. Abrams write and direct a final in this trilogy, and also rush out this film when you've had the death of one of your main cast members, and you're actually having to you're coming off the back of something which I'm going to say this, right, which quote unquote fans, it was a divided film. I don't think Disney understood the lessons of the internet, is that just because the people that shout the loudest are the angrier and more hate-filled people. But if you actually looked at, there's this thing called CinemaScore, I don't know if you've ever heard of it, which actually...
No, I've never heard of it.
CinemaScore is this thing in America where basically, once people come at the theatres, there's people with clipboards there, and what they do is they ask, what grade would you give this film?
Oh, right? Is that the film that gets like an A or A minus?
Yeah, A minus, yeah, exactly. It's all graded like minus pluses and all that stuff, right? And people are asked what your preference of this film was. And The Last Jedi has like an A cinema score. So people came out the film enjoying it. And obviously because of the internet and stuff, it sort of twists people, and it's sort of like, you could sort of frame anything in a bad light if you really wanted to. Like if you wanted to hate a film, you can go in and hate that film, and you will, come out hating it because that's your objective, and you can convince yourself it's bad. Anyway, But Disney didn't understand that the people who are loudest on the internet are the trolls, and they didn't have confidence to make the film they wanted to make, and instead they got this hodgepodge of shit that is the Rise of Skywalker.
I mean, we've gone into so much detail in the Rise of Skywalker. I really don't want to open the can of worms, but like you said, it is just an unrivaled mess of a film,
a complete mess.
Where it's been known that the script was being changed day by day, character plot lines were being changed day by day.
Yep.
Obviously, like you said, they had the death of
Carrie Fisher.
Yep. Yes, to deal with. Thank you. What do you like the handling of Carrie Fisher's death?
It's interesting because making her be a Jedi traitor, I mean, like we said, I think it would have been best to sort of kind of end her story with Episode 8. But they had her brought in, and I don't know. It's tricky. I mean, the idea of her training Rey in the Force is a bit interesting. But you can tell they wanted to do more with her, and they couldn't. So I think it would have been best to sort of leave her story off in The Last Jedi. Or even just... Like we've said with other actors who passed away, recasting might have been the best option, but I think Carrie Fisher is kind of an exception where it's like it would really be weird to someone else.
It is iconic.
Play Princess Leia, so that wouldn't have
the issue
worked.
is with recasting in this scenario, where it's a continuation of a saga that began 40 years ago.
Yeah.
No, sorry, longer than that. What? No, about 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Was it? Yeah, maybe, I can't remember. So it's understandable that you can't recast in that scenario.
Yeah.
If, for any reason, Carrie Fisher's first role as Princess Leia was in A New Hope, then there may be some grounds for recasting in the third film.
Yes.
Obviously, you can't in this scenario, and I do think they did the best they can with what they were given. I don't think that was the worst part of the story. I believe the issue of we killed Snoke, we can't just have Ben be the main villain.
I don't know why. I don't know why.
How can we have Ben be the main villain? That wouldn't work, would it?
Even though he's the most interesting character in the whole trilogy.
We couldn't have Ben and Hux. We couldn't spend some time and make Hux an interesting villain.
Yeah.
No, we'll bring back Palpatine.
Yeah.
And that's honestly all I'm going to say on that point, because I can't get over how stupid of a decision it was.
Terrible idea.
I can't get over how stupid a decision it was to make Rey the granddaughter of Palpatine.
Yeah.
Even technically the daughter, because she's technically the son of one of his clones or something like that.
It's so funny.
And then Snoke being a puppet of the Palpatine and everything about it. The whole 10,000 ships. I can't go over how logistically that just wouldn't work.
I know. I love how for years we've obsessed over having one big, space station that has the ability to destroy planets and things like that. It's like, oh, by the way, Emperor Palpatine's back, and I've got 10,000 ships that have the capacity to destroy worlds. Why are we doing this again? Why are we doing the destroying worlds thing again the fourth time? I couldn't believe it. It's like J.J. Abrams just became obsessed with the Death Star.
After it's been it's been almost 3 years since Rise of Skywalker has came out. Sadly, I've actually seen it once per year.
Fuck
somehow.
Me. Jeez, I've seen it twice somehow.
Both with me.
Oh yeah.
We did our amazing sit through of it at the Christmas was it the first pandemic? We got to watch it together.
Yeah.
And
it's just fascinating. It's actually quite fascinating that film exists, and it's quite funny how how I was praising J.J. Abrams' ability of having great pace in his films. How he tries to trick people to think this is a fun, exciting movie by having the peak, have 100 things happen in a minute. But it's also just like,
I mean, that first 10 minutes is insanely quick. And I honestly think that was a distraction.
Yeah, it's like his greatest asset became a big hindrance for him, because he's just, we have to go do this and this and this and this and this and MacGuffin this, MacGuffin that, MacGuffin this. Chewie's dead. What? No, he's not. He's alive. What? Oh, Huck's a spy. Boom. No, he's dead. Oh, and then you're Palpatine now. Okay. And then it's just madness. It's like fan fiction on steroids. So, it's crazy.
Lewis, I would like to ask you before we finish up talking about this film. Now, this does actually have a correct answer. What is the best thing to come of the Rise of Skywalker?
I don't know. I like that scene with Han Solo and Kylo Ren.
It doesn't actually. I never said because of
Oh,
Rise of
sorry.
Skywalker. I didn't say it was in Rise of
Uh-huh.
Skywalker.
Right, what
Does that
was?
give you a little hint?
No, I have no idea.
Just give me a second. I cheated. I clapped.
Oh.
I raised my hand to the sky.
Oh, the Richard E. Grant reaction to
The
Rise of Skywalker
Richard E.
is
Grant
unbelievable.
reaction
With
is
a
the
gr-
single greatest bit of acting I have ever
with
seen
a
come
great,
from anybody.
and it's also followed up by an incredible Lemmy impersonation of it, which
If you've
subsequently
not
led to
seen,
Lemmy getting blocked on Twitter. Oh, unbelievable, so funny.
if you have not seen this video,
Mm.
type in Richard E. Grant reaction to Episode 9. You will not be disappointed. It is
It's
the best thing to
so
come out from
funny.
this film.
It is funny, and that's the
But
thing,
anyway,
like, because it's funny because Rise of Skywalker both. It made no one happy. It left those who didn't like The Last Jedi unhappy because it's a bad film, and it left those who liked The Last Jedi unhappy because it didn't follow through with anything on that
you
film,
know,
and it was also
it also
uh-huh.
there was obviously big relations with obviously because we had Game of Thrones ending the same year.
Oh yeah.
And I don't think I've seen so many interviews of cast members in 1 year
Yeah.
where they would avoid actually talking about their project because they were not happy with the way it ended.
Yeah. It's such
It's
a shame
incredible.
though because when you go back to 2015 and coming off that Force Awakens, it had so much promise with the cast and things like that, and then
It's mad that this is the only film we have all three of them together. Rey, Poe, and Finn.
yeah, it is, and it's just so. It is quite sad when you look at it as a whole. This film, I'm gonna say this right. As much as to be honest, Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, Rise of Skywalker, all three really to me bad films that I struggled to
Yeah.
sit through. But Rise of Skywalker, where Attack of the Clones and Phantom Menace are completely superfluous, you could completely discard them from the canon, and you don't need to watch those films to make episode 3 work and to make the rest of the saga work. Rise of Skywalker does more damage though because it completely tarnishes a really exciting action film and one really interesting and beautiful looking Star Wars film, and just doesn't deliver on any of those promises that episode 8 ended on, and it really is a shame that it just completely wrecked and is always forever going to leave this trilogy with like a really bad mark because it just makes the whole thing worthless, you know?
It's a shame. It really is a shame. And I mean, to cap this all off, are we Star Wars walk down memory lane? It doesn't help the overall view of Star Wars.
No,
because if I didn't include the sequel trilogy,
yeah,
I would probably say Star Wars is good.
50-50.
Because I would say it's 50-50. I would probably have to give a wee bit of a bonus point for Revenge of the Sith for being so funny.
Yep.
I would probably push it to about 52%,
Yeah.
52,
It's a pass,
53%.
guys, you passed.
It would be in the pass. For right now, it's getting lower with that sequel trilogy.
It's a shame.
Not so much. I would say overall the sequel trilogy was okay, but obviously with Last Jedi and Force Awakens, but Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, but now
breaks that down so much.
I mean, I watch Force Awakens, Last Jedi, and it kind of makes me sad though because I'm like,
of how it
ended.
Enjoy
both those films. I know those are two very different films. I still
enjoy
them for what they are and what we had the potential of an episode 9 to be, and it just wasn't it. But well, very quickly, actually, I'll just ask you, what do you think of the two spin-off films, Solo and Rogue One?
Oh, the spin-off films. Yeah. So, I love both of them.
Do you?
I know it may be controversial. Rogue One, I think, is a fantastic war film, and it makes me very excited for Andor. I think we're going to get more of that.
Yeah.
Some really good set pieces. I love Scarif. I thought it was very beautiful. The ballsiness of just to kill everybody off. Love that. 10 out of 10 for that. That was amazing. Solo, a Star Wars story. From all its heartache with the production of the film, I felt what we got was okay. I think it definitely could have been worse.
Definitely.
The end production. I think Ron Howard did a very good job in dealing with what he was given.
Yes.
in the sense of being given basically. I mean, it's probably isn't it the most expensive Star Wars film because
Yeah,
they
because they
basically
had to
filmed
remake a
it twice.
film. You know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I still enjoy it. I think it's quite a fun little
Yeah, it's
heist
decent.
film.
Yeah. I mean, it's...
Sure, obviously, is it a film that was necessary? No. It would have probably been better if you made it two original characters doing this sort of heist film.
Yeah. Look, it's quite funny because for me, it's Rogue One is a really good looking film, but also they're both of these films are plagued with reshoots and production issues, and a part of me really wants to see what the original versions of these films looked like with, was it Christopher, is it Phil Lord and Christopher Miller? I could be getting
Yeah,
who did the Lego
Lego
movie
movie,
and
Lego movie guys.
Spider-Verse films. I think they were
Yeah, oh
producers
yeah.
on those films. And I would have loved to have seen their vision of that solo film. And same with Gareth Edwards, who quote unquote directed Rogue One. I mean, he directed most of it, but there was a lot in that trailer that is not in that film that I would have liked to have seen. And I would have liked to have seen the full cut of that. But Rogue One's interesting because I think, but actually this ties into Solo as well. I think they are both decent films, and I think their second halves of those films save them, because I think they do struggle in the first half, especially with Rogue One, their characters, because I didn't really find them that interesting at all.
Rogue One had an issue of getting you introduced to all these characters to make you like them all, when really only 2 or 3 of them were necessary out of the 5 or 6 characters that we had.
Yeah, I mean, I think Rogue One's okay. I mean, this is what made me like when they announced.
What do you prefer?
What I prefer, I don't know. Maybe I'll say this, right. When they announced this Andor show, I was completely disinterested because I was like,
everybody was disinterested.
I was like, this character wasn't interesting at all. But by the way, those trailers look excellent. I will say that the trailers for Andor.
That's
really
the thing. Andor has honestly surprised. I mean, to be honest, we haven't seen anything. It could be bad.
Yeah,
I've heard some pretty good things so far from reading people who've seen early screenings.
Nice. I mean, I don't know.
Because we're getting 3 episodes on Wednesday.
Yeah, or we're getting 3. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what's better, the spin-offs. Rogue One looks better, but I think I don't know personally. Weirdly enough, I enjoy the really, because Solo feels like an adventure, and like although it has problems with its cinematography, the things look dark and I don't know.
Black.
I really like what's his name? Aldrin Ehrenreich's Han Solo performance. I really like that.
Yeah, Donald Glover's Lando Calrissian.
Yeah, Donald Glover's good as Lando. I had fun with Solo. I mean, it is what it is. It's a fun little space adventure, and it does kind of harken back to the simplicity of the original trilogy, So, I think controversial. Fuck it, I'm gonna say Solo.
Yeah, go for it. So yeah, just before we finish up here, what was Gunfal's message?
So this was about the Obi-Wan show. I mean, we didn't talk much about it. We referenced the shows a little, but in reference to this Obi-Wan show, which I have to agree wasn't very good. I have problems with that. But he said, I even watched the Obi-Wan show just in case for the show. It was so painful. Such horrible directing, such shit cinematography, all that production money in sets, costumes, and effects, all destroyed by the constant shaky cam. And that's Gonzalo's notes on Obi-Wan.
I mean, maybe we'll come back to that when we talk when we do our TV episode at the end of the year. Yeah. Maybe we can talk a wee bit about TV shows that we didn't like. But yeah, I mean, he's not wrong. I'll give him that.
What were you thinking of Obi-Wan as a show? Did it work for you?
No.
It
felt cheap.
It felt really cheap. It felt.
Do you know what really annoyed me was the lightsabers, where it felt like they were working with actual props. And I know that sounds bad, but the thing is, it didn't feel like they actually added any CGI to it.
Yeah, I know.
Like if you watch it, instead of back in the day where they used just green sticks, and they added on top. Nowadays they use actual almost like lightsabers that you'd get from like a store, proper good ones.
Exactly.
And it felt like it didn't add anything on top. Like you see them fighting, they're fighting with glow sticks.
Yeah. I mean, my main problem with the show was just simply the story they decided to tell with this character. I thought it was just really disappointing, and
it could have been a film.
And it honestly, it obviously was meant to be a film, but obviously with the failures of Solo, they decided to make a show, and you could feel it was padded out to be a 6-episode show, and it really, really shouldn't have been. It just the story
why
wasn't
couldn't
it.
they have done a Disney Plus film?
I don't know. I don't know why they had the feel need to make it a series. I guess it stays in the pop culture more. I don't know. I think
maybe
move.
I don't know. But anyway, that's Star Wars.
Yeah, that is Star Wars, guys. And now it's time for the news with Kyle.
Perhaps the most memorable. Brand new.
And now for something a little bit different with our weekly news.
So our first bit of news is actually Star Wars. I completely forgot.
Okay. What is it?
So Rogue Squadron has been removed from the release schedule.
Yes, the Patty Jenkins I guess, fighter pilot film in space.
Now, I think this was solidified when they released that video of her going, "I'm going to make the greatest fighter pilot film ever made." And then Top Gun Maverick came out.
That was bad timing.
I think they just went, shit, we can't do anything now.
Because it's so baffling because it goes. I mean, every time Kathleen Kennedy announces she's doing a Star Wars film, a few months later it gets wiped off the slate.
I know. I don't know when the next Star Wars film's coming out. It's gonna be forever.
I mean, God knows, and this is a curse with Kathleen Kennedy and trying to get these films out. It's a shame because Star Wars to me has always kind of been like a more cinematic thing, but whatever. What's next?
Yeah. So next we have is you're gonna love this.
Okay.
An announcement of a DC film that we all been waiting for.
Mm-hmm.
Constantine 2.
Yeah. Oh, what is this going to?
Now this is going to be a sequel to. I mean, when did this original film come out? 2002,
2003 or
4?
4. Yeah.
With oh my God, what's his name?
Keanu Reeves.
As basically Constantine, who I mean I don't know where you'd have seen him most recently. A version of Constantine appeared in the Sandman TV show.
Yeah.
There's been a
CW
version, I think. Yeah. This is a film that will, by the time it comes out, it'll be 20 years since the original.
But also, look, we've gone on about this whole Warner Brothers merger, and obviously, at first we thought, right, they're playing things safe. You know, they're getting rid of things like, I mean, we obviously have had a massive spiel about Batgirl and how we think it's a bad move, and obviously they're getting rid of a bunch of stuff in their slate that they don't think will work. But then they go, let's make a sequel to a DC film that no one knows really exists. Like, let's make a sequel to this Keanu Reeves Constantine film, which, who was ever talking about this, you know? It's not like a beloved film.
I have never seen this film.
Like,
I don't intend to see this film.
It's completely lost in the, like, it was like a bargain bin DVD sort of thing. Like, no one it's just baffling that this is what they're deciding to greenlight next. It's so strange.
I am just so shocked.
How's a sequel that's going to work when no one cares about the original? Like, there's not like doing Top Gun, for example. Everyone knows the original Top Gun, or like, you know, it's a pop culture iconic film that's talked about and referenced in cinema since it came out. People know Top Gun, but Constantine is, you know what, forget it. I'm done rambling. Move on.
I know. I'm gonna move on. So a couple of things is, so numbers are coming in, and The Northman actually has ended up being profitable, due to the film's theatrical release and its PVOD.
What? Whoa,
sales.
Where did you get this news from?
A Hollywood Reporter.
What? How much did it make in VOD?
Oh, right. I don't know.
Because the box office, I didn't think it even made its budget back.
So, 70 million. I don't know if it's giving me the exact figures on it, and it's too big of an article. I'll forward you the article, and then you can read it for yourself. But yeah, apparently it has become profitable.
I am absolutely stunned at that news, because that would have had to make a lot in VOD, in video on demand, and I can't believe people would do that. That's quite shocking.
Remind me, and I'll forward that article on for you. You can have some morning reading. So, a couple of delays.
More delays.
Kraven the Hunter has been delayed to October 6th, 2023.
I'm really sad.
I'm absolutely gutted. Now, what I am gutted about Madam Web has been delayed to February 16th, 2024.
I'm actually quite happy about that because that gives Mission Impossible 3 a bit more time in the weekend box office to make some money.
That's true. It would have absolutely bombed if it was released with Madam Web.
But I don't.
The Terminator Spider-Man film. Yeah, it's gonna be the greatest thing ever.
Moving that from a summer release date to a winter release date, like a late winter release date, is questionable at best.
Garfield, starring Chris Pratt and Samuel Jackson, has been delayed to May 24th, 2024.
Jesus Christ.
What a shame. And this is probably quite random, actually, I feel. A new Karate Kid film is set to release on June 7th, 2024. Now, this has been described as returning to the original Karate Kid franchise, but it's been confirmed by the co-showrunner of Cobra Kai that this new film will not feature any. Well, it says to not follow any of the current cast.
Yes, so I assume that means it will be like that sort of Jaden Smith Karate Kid film where it's not a remake. It's not a remake. It's a reboot, and it'll be somewhere else with different characters.
Yeah, I feel it's gonna be. It feels really weird why you would try and
because Karate Kid's
make this
Karate Kid's
film. Yeah.
Sorry, we keep interrupting each other, but like Karate Kid's, it's a well-known, IP, and like they made. I think the Jane Smith one made money as well, and not tying it into the Cobra Kai show makes sense to me because while that's like a popular show, it's not like a mega popular show. It's not like doing like, I don't know, a Game of Thrones film at the height of that popularity where that would have been a success. It's
when it's saying it's like trying to return to the Karate Kid franchise, do you think that's maybe just focusing on one little competition?
Yes.
And not in the fact that Cobra Kai is currently dealing with like world domination and
like Cobra Kai it's fun and it's very ridiculous. And I can understand why they wouldn't tie those two together, because you'd also have to watch 6 series of a show to then watch a film. It does make sense, but it's weird.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that was more or less all the news. Do you have the box office to wrap us up here?
Yes, I do. So, things are obviously different. Things are released in America this weekend, which haven't released anywhere else, so it's kind of hard to do a weekend box office. But The Woman King opened in the States, and it came number 1 with $19 million, and that's all it's made to date. The Barbarian...
Wait, when are we getting The Woman King, sorry?
Woman King is the 7th of October here for us.
Oh, wow. Yeah, okay, a wee bit away.
Barbarian came in at number 2, making a nice little $6.3 million. Its worldwide total is at $20 million. Pearl, the X prequel, made $3.1 million in its opening weekend, and that's its worldwide total as well. Don't know when we're getting that. Don't know when any other market's getting that. Very strange.
Well, I believe, is Pearl not... Did it not have like a budget of like something ridiculous? Like,
like a
few million or 2 million or something like that. So
it's made it back.
I always see that being profitable.
And they are doing an X sequel as well.
Maxine,
so, yes. So See How They Run came in at number 4, making 3.1 million and a worldwide total of 7.6 million. And rounded out the top 5 was Bullet Train, shockingly, with 2.5 million.
Really?
Yep. And its worldwide total is now at $222 million. So somehow Bullet Train keeps making money.
That's bizarre.
Yeah. I mean, it's like
I feel that film came out months ago.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. It did scale.
Anyway, well that was the news and box office. So now it's time for reviews.
And now, reviews.
So, See How They Run is directed by Tom George and stars Sam Rockwell, Saoirse Ronan, as well as... It's quite a stacked cast. You've got Adrian Brody in there as well, and a little bit part. You've got David Ole. Oh my God,
you're right there. Yeah,
as bad as yours today, Kyle. He's most well known for playing Martin Luther King in the film Selma. Quite a varied British cast. It's a classic sort of whodunit murder mystery set in the 1950s.
53.
Yeah, 1950s. Pretty much. Yeah, 53. That's it. Pretty much the beginning. Of when Agatha Christie's The Mousetrap was starting to become a big hit on the West End, but during one of the first few weeks of the play's run, No, actually, that's a lie. It's like the 100th show.
Yeah,
The 100th
yeah,
show.
I was about to say because it was the whole thing.
Yeah, I was like, first 3 weeks. I was like, no, it wasn't. On the 100th show, they're actually planning to do a film adaptation. And Adrian Brody is this stuck-up kind of Hollywood director
kind of
who's coming in and wants to do a bunch of and really arrogant. No one really likes him, and he makes a little joke in the film about
he does an amazing
all these whodunits.
Yeah, the first voiceover. Is it like it's like the kind of first ever like narration of the film. He's like, the first guy to die is always the one you don't like the least.
Yeah, and of course Adrian Brody is the one to die about 5 minutes in. So there's a dead body on the set of the Mousetrap play, and Sam Rockwell is a kind of disgruntled alcoholic classic detective, and he's got his plucky sidekick played by Saoirse Ronan, who plays the Constable. And both of them have to find out who the killer is. It's a very, very standard sort of classic whodunit. And Kyle, I always come to you first, so we do these shared reviews, and I want to know your overall thoughts.
So I had a few of my friends had gone to seen this, right? And their kind of best kind of way they were saying it is like, it's good. I wouldn't see it again. That's what a lot of them said. They're like, yeah, it was fun, but I wouldn't be like, oh, I need to go see that again. I'm kind of like, well, I don't know how many people have, a whodunit, because the whole thing about a whodunit is once the person's out,
once the mystery's solved,
it's not really I want to go back again and watch how they came to the conclusion. Yeah. You know the conclusion. But what I really, I only saw this a few hours ago, as of recording time. They really were telling us this is meant to be a classic. How they did it.
It's a very...
not how they did it. Who done it? Like, it's meant to be stereotypical. It's meant to be a wee bit of a goof on it on sometimes,
Right, yeah,
and it's meant to be a wee bit kind of... I think
I don't know. I think... Yeah, look, I think... I'll actually start... I don't like to start off with the negatives first, but I'll start off with the negatives first, and then I'll go into the positives, right? And for me, it's interesting that you say that, because I don't think it was. Like, I think it was a film that... yes, it's a very, very paint by numbers whodunit with very, very kind of typical character archetypes and things like that. But it's also it's also very self-referential of the fact that it is. So it's like, they do all these jokes like, oh, flashbacks are such a lazy way to tell the story. And then immediately go into a flashback and they go, it's the most annoying character who dies first. And then, of course, Adrian Brody dies first. And they do all these things where it's like, oh, this is going to be... quite predictable, and like, have a little cheekiness to it. It's like, a whodunit. But then it has all these meta jokes about the genre, but then goes on to be very paint by numbers. It doesn't really do anything. But
I kind of think
fresh with it.
It's not like that's what I thought.
Where that was a bit more.
Yeah,
fresh.
I know what you mean about Knives Out, but I weirdly, for some reason, I felt like that was what it was telling me, was that it was going to be a very plain by. That's who does it. It's not going to try and redefine the genre. It's just going to be a wee bit straightforward while having nudges or like little jokes, in jokes about the kind of the genre. Yes, and for me, I mean, like I said, you could have not seen that, or maybe I was just kind of in the zone and I was just like, I like how it's just very simple. But I think I can see I don't get me wrong, I can definitely see why sometimes that those little like. Especially the kind of, this is how, I hate flashbacks. That's really boring and such. Yeah. I when I was there, I was kind of like, okay, that's I was a wee bit, I wasn't like that's an amazing scene, but there's certain things where there's one bit I liked, which I called, and I just thought that would be really cheesy if they did it. Was when like, because obviously Adrian Brody's been like. This director who's...
Is this the storyboard
scene?
The
storyboard scene. Adrian Brody's trying to like basically change around the ending of the Mousetrap to make it more appealing to make moviegoers or
flashier and stuff.
And he does this, and I won't say anything of the storyboards, but he sets the producer Wolf down and the lead writer, I think it was and he sets them down and he's like he's going through these flashcards of what happens in the final act. And I was sitting there and I went, if they wanted to be really silly, they will have it that is exactly how it plays out, and it plays out.
Yeah,
exactly.
you knew that was. Yeah, obviously you knew that was gonna happen. Yeah.
And I just like that. I was like, that's quite, you know.
Mm-hmm. That's fair enough. I mean, I don't know. I just think it's one of those things where it's like, I'm trying to remember what other films do this, where some films like just because you point out the joke or the cliches of it, doesn't really give you a pass to just do that.
I know what you mean. It's you know, just because you're saying, this is funny.
Yeah.
Like, see if this film had a laugh track, you'd be like, oh no, because it's like telling you when there's a joke.
Yeah. But yeah, on positive side, look, Sam Rockwell and Saoirse Ronan especially. Saoirse Ronan is really, really funny in this and quite delightful. She was definitely the star of the show for me.
Stalker, Constable.
Yeah, Constable Stalker. Constable Stalker, yes. And she was good.
She was hilarious.
With the rest of the cast, you don't see kind of a lot of the cast.
I did feel that
some of them kind of get sidelined a fair bit. Yeah.
I was thinking that it was because obviously this is quite a short runtime, 1 hour 30. That when we got to the final act, and it's a classic invited for dinner sort of thing, right? That's all I'll say. And I was kind of sitting there, kind of going, I don't really feel anything. I was like, I kind of forget who most of these characters are because of maybe like the 6 or 7 suspects. You're really only kind of focused on like a couple. Like you only get like a kind of that's deep understanding. I also have a question. Is that meant to be Richard Attenborough? I think so.
There's a guy who plays Richard Attenborough, and and I think that is meant to be Richard Attenborough.
I'm guessing he was in a production of so Mousetrap way back in the 50s. That's interesting.
Yeah, he's good. Yeah. I liked him. But yeah, look, the film also has a really tight and tidy look to it. It's very, very steady. The shot composition's really, really solid. Everything looks quite pretty. Great production design, great costume design. It's all very good at setting you in the time period. It looks good. Has a good few laughs.
I was going to ask you about the laughs because the showing that I went to it was fairly packed on a Sunday afternoon.
Oh, was it? Good.
Yep. And especially from, let's say, another more recent film that we saw that was advertised as a comedy, Love and Thunder. Yes. I actually got a few more laughs out of this.
Yeah, more people.
A lot of people really liked
a better film.
The very simple. Whenever the policemen were in the room, they'd all leave. It'd all be Inspector, Constable, Inspector.
That was clever.
Those little things people liked, and people got a real kick out. And I would just see of the tea scene.
Yes.
Because somebody went as soon as that was put down, I could hear the people laughing behind me starting to laugh because they just knew what was going to happen, and then the sudden fall, they were like. Yeah. I mean, some people were cracking up in that theater, and I was like, it just made me feel nice. I was like, this is just a theater that people are just enjoying this film.
Yeah, and I do think I think a lot of people have a lot of fun with it. It's a fairly harmless, decent, well made, but very, very standard sort of whodunit. And I think for my score, I'm just gonna give it a solid 6 out of 10 for me. What about you?
I'm probably going to give it a 7. I had a lot of fun. I'm on the same opinion of my friends that I won't run out to see this film again. Down the line, if it's ever on streaming and I'm sitting there with somebody who hasn't seen it, I would say, do you want to watch this? It's a good bit of fun.
Yeah. Look, if it was on like TV or something, it'd be a good film to sort of just have on while you're like chatting or like on your phone or something like that. Something if you've seen before, you can, just kind of have on. It's just kind of nice. It's just kind of nice.
It is. It's the best way to describe it. I think the characters are really good fun. Like you said, that kind of everything makes you really feel that you're in that kind of time period. I wish we had a wee bit more time with some of the other suspects.
Sure.
But I think I also liked how, because of the suspects were all people who were involved in a play that was based around whodunit. They're all a bit like, you know, oh, do you suspect me because of this? And it's like, because they're all in, they're all thinking they have like some sort of knowledge about the situation that they're in. But no, I really enjoyed to see how they run.
Well, okay. Well, that'll about wrap up the reviews then. And that was a review for See How They Run, and that will be the end of today's show. So thank you very much, Kyle, for joining me.
You're welcome as always.
No bother, no bother. It's such a habit to say thank you, Gonthal, but he's not here. Oh well.
I know, it's a shame.
But yes, that was our Star Wars roundup, and of course our news and reviews. And on next week's show, guys, we're going to be doing a full episode on Don't Worry, Darling. You know, the Olivia Wilde film that's caused so much controversy worldwide. But we will just be reviewing the film itself in its entirety and try and ignore all that drama. But it may be hard not to. So yes, we just gave our opinions on Star Wars and our franchise as a whole, but of course, those were just our unwanted opinions. Thank you very much.
Bye.